Anderson,
Here.
Barbaza,
Here.
Burton,
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Smithwick Ailey, Topfest,
Here.
and Badla.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. For our meeting on July 5th, are there any changes to the minutes? Any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes of our planning and zoning meeting for July 5th, 2023 are approved. We do not have any presentations with prior notice or public hearings or unfinished business, but we do have new business. Resolution PZ 2023-014, granting a request for a sign variance to the area limitations for wall signs and to the frontage length and distance limitations for freestanding signs located on Mullen Homestead and sublot 2A-1, 43965 Sterling Highway. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve resolution PZ 2023-014, granting a request for a sign variance to the area limitations for wall signs and to the frontage length and distance limitations for freestanding signs located on Mullen Homestead sublot 2A-1, 43965 Sterling Highway.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second.
Thanks. Can we have the staff report, please?
On July 24th, Jared Barrick of ECI Alaska, representing KDG Alaska LLC, submitted an application for a sign variance to the area limitations for wall signs and distance limitations between freestanding signs on the property legally described as Mullen Homestead Subdivision Number 3, Lot 2A-1, which is legally addressed as 43965 Sterling Highway. Specifically, the applicant is proposing to erect 9 wall signs that total 206 square feet in area to the north and west sides of the structure, as well as proposing to erect 3 freestanding signs. The property is 7.44 acres in size. It's served by city water and sewer. It's zoned commercial, and it is accessed from the Sterling Highway and East Redoubt Avenue. This resolution, I'm gonna pull it up. This resolution considers 2 aspects: the additional area of 44 square feet of wall signs and the addition of a second freestanding sign along the Sterling Highway. The Planning and Zoning Commission is able to approve both variance requests as they are applied for. That is the additional area of wall signs and the additional freestanding sign, or it could approve only one of the requests separately from the other, which could grant either the additional area of wall signs or the additional area of the additional freestanding sign. It could also decide not to grant either approval, and so then no variance would be issued for either of the requests. Approximately 7 of the 9 wall signs, or that which cumulatively totals 164 square feet, would not require a variance to be erected, and those could be permitted administratively. That is, either John or I would be able to issue the permit without the planning and zoning approval. And the same is true for part of the request for the freestanding sign. So approximately one of the freestanding signs along the Sterling Highway requires a variance between the length of the frontage on the Sterling Highway as it's less than 500 feet. And its proposed distance to any other freestanding sign is less than 300 feet. A variance is not required for the placement of a freestanding sign along East Redoubt Avenue and one of the freestanding signs along the Sterling Highway. That could be permitted administratively. The variance is only considering the request for the second freestanding sign along the Sterling Highway. I'm going to go through each section of code for each type of sign for the commercial zoning district, and this starts on page 9 of your packet. So section 1508.030, this states the general requirements for the signs in the city. It goes through a number of different requirements of signs. I can pull up that sign code real quick. So it goes through signs in the right of way, visibility standards, prohibited signs, and so on and so forth. The main section of this code that we really kind of hone in on is that of visibility. So one of the requirements states that no sign or sign structure shall be erected in such a way that interferes with the visibility standards under Title 12 of our code. The 9 proposed wall signs are outside of any visibility triangle as they are on the building. The 3 freestanding signs are outside of any visibility triangle as they are depicted on the site plan. And then the next section of code that we'll look at is section 1508.040. This looks at the first part, it looks at wall signs. So wall signs shall be constructed of materials approved for the use intended in complying with construction types, fire resistant requirements of the building code, unless otherwise specified. No sign shall be erected having an area in excess of 81 square feet. The 7 of the proposed wall signs will be made out of aluminum with LED illumination. The Mopar service sign will be aluminum with fluorescent illumination, and the Ford sign will be polycarbonate with LED illumination. The blue Kendall sign on the Sterling side of the building was actually not included in the complete application packet, but a document which was previously submitted, we utilized for those, the materials and the type of illumination. And then for freestanding signs, freestanding signs shall be constructed of materials approved for the use intended in complying with the construction types and fire resistant requirements of the building code unless otherwise specified under this code, with the exception that no combustible materials other than approved plastics shall be used in construction of electric signs. Pole supported signs shall be provided with a pole cover. And then specifically within the commercial zoning district, 1 freestanding sign up to 110 square feet may be installed, with all other permitted signs limited to 81 square feet. Freestanding signs shall be placed a minimum of 5 feet back from all property lines. Within the commercial district, signs shall also be placed a minimum of 20 feet back from the curb line. The 3 proposed freestanding signs are required to be 20 feet from the curb and 5 feet from the property line in order to meet our standards. The Ford freestanding sign along the Sterling Highway, which is back here. The Ford freestanding sign will be located 36.4 feet from the curb line and 18.5 feet from the property line. It will be constructed out of polycarbonate with LED illumination, and a pole cover will also be made out of polycarbonate. The Jeep sign is also on the Sterling Highway. It will be 25 feet from the curb line and 5 feet from the property line. It is to be constructed out of reinforced steel with aluminum composite wrapping and LED illumination with a pole cover of aluminum. The Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram monument sign located on East Redoubt Avenue will be 20 feet from the curb line and 5.8 feet from the property line. It will be constructed out of reinforced steel with an aluminum exterior and fluorescent and LED illumination. All of our code standards are met in this section. And then we're going to look at section 1508.050, which is the requirements based on the zoning district. So signs within the commercial district, 1 freestanding sign per premise and 1 wall sign per occupancy is permitted under our code. Where a building has more than 1 street frontage, additional signs will be allowed on the additional frontage. However, the total number of signs shall not exceed 2 freestanding signs per premise or 2 wall signs per occupancy. Where a lot has in excess of 300 feet of frontage, 1 additional freestanding sign will be allowed for each additional 200 feet of street frontage. Such signs may be placed no closer than 300 feet to any other freestanding sign on the same premise. No sign shall be erected having an overall height greater than 35 feet, except that all freestanding signs shall be limited to a maximum of 20 feet in height. No sign shall be erected having an area in excess of 81 square feet, except that a freestanding sign may have an area up to 110 square feet, with all other additional freestanding signs limited to 81 square feet. .43965 Sterling Highway has 2 frontages. Thus, the cumulative area for the wall signs allowed is up to 162 square feet. The application packet included 9 wall signs. Go back to 9 wall signs of various sizes. The 9 wall signs have a cumulative area of 206 square feet, which exceeds our standards for a building with 2 frontages, and thus needs a variance for the signs to be installed according to the application. Additionally, because of these 2 frontages, and that the parcel has an excess of 500 square feet of frontage, 3 freestanding signs are allowed under code. The application packet included 3 freestanding signs. However, all three of the signs are under 20 feet, which meets our code standards of height. The areas for each of these 3 signs meet the requirement that one not be greater than 110 square feet and the second and third not be greater than 81 square feet. So those standards are met. The parcel has 368.82 feet of frontage along the Sterling Highway. And it has 858 feet of frontage along the East Readout Avenue. As this parcel has more than 300 feet of frontage, an additional freestanding sign is allowed per each 200 feet of frontage along East Readout Avenue. A variance would not be required if the third freestanding sign was placed on East Readout Avenue at a distance of 300 feet away from any other freestanding sign, as this frontage has more than the 500 feet. And that, again, this is because our code reads, where a lot has in excess of 300 feet of frontage, one additional freestanding sign will be allowed for each additional 200 feet of street frontage. However, to place a third freestanding sign less than 300 feet away from another freestanding sign and on a frontage of less than 500 feet, a variance is required. The Sterling Highway frontage is less than the required 500 feet at 368.82 feet. In addition, the proposed placement of the Ford sign along the Sterling Highway is less than 300 feet away from any other sign at 196 feet from the Jeep sign and approximately 250 feet from the Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram sign. And then the last section of code that I'll go with you, thanks for bearing with me, is going to be for the variance process itself. And then that starts on page 15 of your packet. So this is for code 1508010I, and this allows for an applicant to seek a variance from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the allowable area and the placement requirements of the code. The applicant seeks a variance to the maximum allowable area standard of 162 feet for wall signs and for the location and placement of a freestanding sign. The commission must find that the general standards are met before a variance may be granted, and there are 6 standards. So we'll go through each one by one. For the first one, and again, this is on page 15, granting of the variance shall be in harmony with the general provisions of this code, the zoning code, and the comprehensive plan. For freestanding signs specifically, staff finds that this standard is partially met. The objective of the sign code, as stated in 1508010B, is to, quote, ensure fire and life safety, increase the effectiveness of visual communications, and avoid visual clutter, which is harmful to vehicular and pedestrian safety, property values, business opportunities, and the community's appearance. The 3 freestanding signs are in close proximity to each other within a distance of approximately 250 feet, as the Ford sign is proposed to be placed 196 feet away from the Jeep sign, and the Jeep sign is approximately 50 feet from the Chrysler, Dodge, Ram sign. The 3 freestanding signs will create additional visual clutter along the Sterling Highway. However, even if the Ford freestanding sign is placed 300 feet away from the Jeep sign, still on that Sterling Highway, it would still be in close proximity to the Starbucks Domino sign on the adjacent property at approximately 75 feet from that freestanding sign. Staff also finds that the proposal partially meets the general standards of the zoning code and goals of the comprehensive plan to improve the streetscape of the Sterling Highway corridor, as the additional freestanding sign will not necessarily improve the streetscape of the Sterling Highway. The applicant has the ability to meet our code by placing the 3rd freestanding sign along East Readout Avenue 300 feet away from any other freestanding sign, as East Readout Avenue has the required frontage of 500 feet and greater to place the additional freestanding sign along. And then looking at standard number 1 for wall signs specifically, staff finds that this standard is met. The objective of the sign code, as stated in 1508010B, again, is to ensure fire and life safety, increase effectiveness of visual communications, avoid clutter, which is harmful to vehicular and pedestrian safety, property values, business opportunities, and the community's appearance. Staff also finds that the proposal meets the general standards of the zoning code and goals of the comprehensive plan to improve the streetscape of the highway corridors. Second standard is, and that's on page 16, is granting of the variance shall not result in material damage to other properties in the neighborhood, nor otherwise be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. Staff finds this standard is met. Staff does not believe that adding the wall signs or the freestanding signs will be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, nor otherwise result in damage to neighboring properties. Standard 3, granting of the variance shall not cause conditions which obstruct the vision of drivers or pedestrians at intersections or crossings. Staff finds the standard is met for both. For freestanding signs, the 3 freestanding signs are all at a distance of 20 feet or greater from the curb and 5 feet from the property line. All 3 signs are outside of any site triangle visibility obstruction. For wall signs, staff finds the standard is met. The 9 wall signs as proposed are at least 70 feet from the drivers and pedestrians as they're on the building, and therefore would not obstruct their vision at intersections or crossings. Standard 4, this is on page 17 now. Standard 4, the sign for which the variance is requested shall be in harmony with surrounding buildings and properties. And I'm gonna flip to the appendage, which is directly behind the staff report, but here is that. So for freestanding signs, specifically, I'll look at both freestanding signs and wall signs for the standard number 4. For freestanding signs, staff finds that the standard is not met. The Kendall parcel has 368.82 feet of frontage along the Sterling Highway. All 3 of the proposed freestanding signs are in close proximity to each other, less than 200 feet. No buildings and properties in the area contain 3 freestanding signs within a single parcel that are in such close proximity to each other. However, there are multiple examples along the Sterling Highway where 3 freestanding signs are in close proximity. North Country Fair, Rent-A-Center, and Siam Noodles are within 190 feet of each other, although each are on separate parcels. And so that's on the 3rd page of your photo attachment. It goes into a picture of North Country Fair, Rent-A-Center, and Siam Noodles. These 3 freestanding signs are very close to each other. They're within 190 feet. However, they are all on separate parcels and they're not advertising for the same business. Another example is for Safeway, Sportsman's Warehouse, and Northern Bank. These are about 140 feet from each other. However, again, each of these 3 signs are in different parcels. And a 3rd example can be seen at Aspen Hotel, Arby's, and Napa. These are within approximately 230 feet of each other, but again, each of these 3 signs are on separate parcels, and these 3 signs advertise for 3 separate businesses. There is an example in town of 2 signs on 1 parcel, and that is for Pizza Boys and Shops Around the Corner. These signs are within 150 feet of each other. Pizza Boys and Shops Around the Corner are on the same parcel. However, these signs are grandfathered into a legal non-conforming status as they were erected prior to the adoption of Ordinance 489 in 1991, which established the sign code to prohibit more than 1 freestanding sign per frontage of less than 500 feet. In 1991, this was cited as 1528130. Section 1528 was later repealed in 1999 and replaced with 1508. There is no instance or example in Soldotna of 3 freestanding signs being placed within such a close proximity and within a single parcel. Staff finds the standard is not met for freestanding signs. However, the standard is met for wall signs. Staff finds examples here, and I'll go through. So again, this is still looking at the photo appendage, and this is page 1 now. Staff finds the standard is met for wall signs. The wall signs would occupy an otherwise blank portion of the facade and would be in harmony with surrounding buildings and properties. The signs as proposed would be proportionate to the size of the building. Variances that have been granted in similar situations where large facades or the distance from the traveled roadway have allowed for greater signs than the city standards. Examples include Tanner's Seafood, Fred Meyer's, Safeway, Sportsman's Warehouse, and Dan's Automotive. Staff finds the standard is met for wall signs. And then going back to our packet for standard number 5, a sign for which the variance is requested in all other ways complies with the requirements of this code and any other applicable code and ordinances. This is on page 17 of the packet. Staff finds the standard is met for both the wall and freestanding signs, with the exception of allowable area of the wall signs and the distance position between the freestanding signs. The 9 wall signs and 3 freestanding signs meet all the other requirements of our code. And then lastly, proof of sales tax compliance within the borough, and they were able to provide that. And so it is staff's recommendation After reviewing the proposal, that we recommend adding 9 wall signs totaling 206 square feet and finds that the requested area variance for the proposed wall signs meets the required standards necessary to grant approval. However, staff has reviewed the 3 freestanding signs along the frontage of less than 500 feet and within a distance less than 300 feet of each other. Staff finds that this standard number 4 is not met for freestanding signs, and standard number 1 is only partially met. This is 1508-010I states that all of the general standards must be met before a variance may be granted. Therefore, staff recommends only the wall sign variance be approved through resolution PZ 2023-014. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Do you need a glass of water? Um, yeah, thank you. All right, the public comment period is now open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? I don't think we have any.
We do have Jared.
Oh, we do have
and
Jared.
I'm going
Okay.
to,
Great.
Jared, I promoted you to a panelist. Okay, here he is.
All right, it appears that I'm a panelist now.
Yes. For if you wouldn't mind, just for
Hello,
the
I
record.
assume that you can hear me. This is Jared. I'm the architect representing Kindle Development Group in this variance process.
Can you state your address? Just
Thank you
the
for
record?
that extremely thorough presentation, Jen. Very impressive packet you put together for this meeting. We appreciate the city's consideration of the wall signage and the recommendation from city staff on that front. I think the main thing that I would like to convey is that the Ford freestanding sign location that we have proposed in this variance is, of course, the one that we would really like to have, as it helps signal the west driveway of the site and serves as an effective wayfinding tool. If I could direct you to figure 10 on page 18 of the packet, the location noted as the potential relocation of the Ford sign in order to meet the 300-foot distance in code. I was under the impression that that was a code compliant location, given that it is greater than 300 feet. The nuance of the 300-foot clearance requirement with an additional 200 feet, or for every additional 200 feet of frontage, was lost on me. So I was under the impression that potential relocation position that I was considering in my discussions with Jen and John, I thought that was a code compliant location. All that being said, that would be a great fallback location for us to install that Ford sign. I'm not sure if that's something that can be handled within the structure of this variance proposal. But if possible, that would be a suitable, I guess, secondary location for that Ford sign. To be restricted to only have 2 signs, or to only have 1 sign on the Sterling frontage is fairly disruptive to the branding plan for this facility, as well as some of the infrastructure that's already been placed, expecting to have 2 signs on that right of way. But I will leave that to the commission to discuss. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jared. Just for our records, can you state your address? I think you can hear me.
Jared, can you hear us? Well, I have his address, so
Okay, great.
that should be fine. I just want to make sure he can hear us in case you guys have questions for him.
Yeah.
Jared, are you able to hear us?
Oh, now I can. Something must have been broken. I apologize. I've heard nothing ever since I started talking. My apologies.
Thank you. We were able to hear you loud and clear. I just wanted to make sure that the communication was two-way.
I appreciate that. I can hear you fine now.
All right, thank you. I don't think there's anyone else from the public wishing to speak. So the public comment period is closed. Thanks, Jared. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff?
Madam Chair, Jen, the two sign, figure 10 again, the signage that fronts onto this Sterling and then onto East Redoubt, they're certainly closer together than 200 feet or even whatever. So how does that square with the ordinance?
Are you talking about the Chrysler Dodge Ram monument sign and the Jeep?
Yes,
It-
and the Jeep.
So our code does not specify distances between frontage locations. So technically, although, I think staff feels that the intent of the code is that for the frontage signage to be advertising for that frontage location. In this instance, they're able to use, that frontage signage to advertise towards the Sterling, it appears. So the code doesn't specify between two frontage signs, the 300 feet. The 300 feet is only a specification between signs on the same frontage. Well, actually, it's between the second sign of a frontage and all other freestanding signs.
Second question, in the resolution itself, it's unclear to me that, notwithstanding your recommendation, is what it seems to say, I think in number 6, if I'm getting this correct, I'm gonna have to find it here, is that it says, excuse me, it says that both freestanding signs, number 6 is not right. I think I read somewhere in the resolution that both signs were approved on the frontage.
That's true. So resolutions are always written in the positive. So this is to grant the variance for both. If you want to amend the resolution to grant the variance for one or the other, that is completely acceptable. And that language, we can help you with too along the way. I know sometimes it's hard to make that motion to amend. So again, all resolutions are written in the positive. If you want to deny the resolution, it's a vote of no on the resolution. So although staff recommends based on code, for only one of the variances to be approved, how it's written is for both variances to be approved. Does that help?
So where is that found? Because that's what I'm.
Right. So it's kind of found in 2 or 3 locations. So for example, underneath the 7th whereas, where it says, whereas the City of Soldotna Planning and Zoning Commission find, and then if we're to scroll down 10, it would be both either 9 or 10, depending on how you want to grant this. Whichever sign, whether it's the wall sign for 9 or the freestanding sign for 10, is in harmony with the general provisions of the sign code, the zoning code, and comprehensive plan. So that was the one that we said was partially met for freestanding signs and completely met for wall signs. And then if you were to scroll down a little bit more, we go to 14, where it says the proposed freestanding signs are in harmony with the surrounding buildings and properties. That's where we said it wasn't met. That standard of that one of those 6 standards in the variance section of Title 15, we said that it wasn't met. And then if you were to say that, wall signs, you feel that wall signs were not in harmony with surrounding buildings and properties, that would be striking 13. And then if you were to amend the resolution again, if you wanted to amend it so the wall signs were prohibited and that variance wasn't allowed, it would be removing section 1. If you wanted to prohibit the variance and not allow the variance for freestanding signs, that would be striking section 2. So for each one, if you were to amend it for one and not the other, there would be 3 portions of our resolution that would need to be stricken.
This is Charlene. I have a question. If we vote down this resolution, can they come back with the variance just for the wall signs?
They could, and you could do it, you could handle that in multiple different ways. If you, as a commission, decide amongst yourselves that you would like to approve the variance for just the wall sign, you can amend that here now without requiring the applicant to come back with a different application. So we can create that now. The other option is if you decide to deny the request completely for neither variance, then they are freely allowed to come back with any other type of variance request to you.
Commissioner Burton. So we have 2 items here, wall signs and then the freestanding signs. After reading it prior to this meeting, the wall signs, I feel are in harmony with what city wants, with what Kendall Ford or just Kendall wants. The freestanding signs, I don't, after going through all of this, I mean, it's not in harmony with the plan. If we were to allow it, we have a 3rd freestanding sign that is a little below the recommended amount, but pushing it all the way off to the side, we're starting to crowd other signs in a 2nd parcel. So kind of seeing what everybody else thinks, I would like to move this to where we have essentially split this into 2. So have wall signs and then the freestanding sign.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Murray, I think, couldn't we address it by simply in the whereas, where that has the 17 bullet points. It was number 6. Basically, my sense would be just to eliminate and instead of in that first line of number 6 and 1 freestanding sign, which is proposed for the Sterling Highway frontage. And then, of course, as Jen says, there are other areas that have to be synced up, but that would, I agree with you that the wall signs are fine. I mean, that's directive to the customer where, what's here and everything else. I agree with Mr. Barrick that putting the Ford sign close to the entrance is also a helpful thing. So moving that in the proposal number, the figure 10 actually moves that away from the wayfinding aspect of the sign. So that would be my sense. To make an amendment, I would propose an amendment to the whereas the city finds in number 6, 1 freestanding sign is proposed at location of East Redoubt Avenue and 1 freestanding sign for the Sterling Highway frontage. And then clean up the rest of the language to comply with that amendment if adopted.
All right, so just to recap, the motion is to, on the 7th whereas, the City of Soldotna Planning and Zoning Commission find number 6, it would read 1 freestanding sign is proposed for location on East Redoubt Avenue, and it would be to remove 2 and add in 1 freestanding sign is proposed for the Sterling Highway frontage. Oh, I think John, I
That's correct.
think John has something to say. Sorry, John, I didn't see you.
Hi, just for the record, John Sarneski, the Director of Planning Economic Development. And just a couple things. One is to repeat what Jen said, is that this resolution looks at and is written to approve two variances, one for wall signs and one for freestanding signs. If you want to just approve one of those, some amendments will have to be made. And I believe, as Mr. Burton was suggesting, I too agree that it's best to essentially find out where everybody stands on wall signs and freestanding signs, and then see if there's some agreement as to roll forward. And then third, to Mr. Murray's points, if that item 6 is modified as suggested, it's really not necessary, because one freestanding sign on both of those right-of-ways is allowable without a variance. So 6 can be stricken entirely if that is your intent, to only allow one on each at this point, or to deny the freestanding sign variance as requested.
Thank you, John.
John, this is Commissioner Anderson here. Maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought that they would be within compliance if they had two signs 300 feet apart on the same side, and then the other sign with just one sign was totally fine on the freestanding. Is that not correct? I mean, there's no variance if they have them 300 feet apart on the same side, right?
For frontage.
Per frontage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's two parts of that test. And as I believe Jen mentioned in our code, it basically states where a lot has an excess of 300 feet of frontage, one additional freestanding sign can be allowed for each additional 200 feet of street frontage. So in this case, they've got along the Sterling Highway just over, I believe, 300 feet, but they don't have the additional 200 feet to allow for the second sign. They do along East Redoubt. It goes on to say such signs may be placed no closer than 300 feet to any other freestanding sign on the same premises. So as Jen mentioned, in this instance, in either case, a variance would be required whether they place it at 196 feet from the other sign or 300 feet from the sign, because they lack that 200 feet additional space to make it an allowable use.
Understood. So I guess my position then would be that we go with, is that staff's comments there, potential relocation of the Ford sign in order to meet the 300 feet distance in code, or is that their interpretation?
Well, I think Jared can speak to this a little bit more, but in our conversation with Jared, that was another thought. It was if the commission didn't want the Ford sign to be so close, they could also apply for the sign to be moved further away. You know, so they would still need a variance because it's on a frontage of less than 500 feet, but it would at least meet one part of that variance of being less or being at 300 feet away from any other sign.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Murray, I would withdraw my amendment as not germane.
Thank you. Can we go back to the just the height of each of these proposed signs? So I think the Ford sign is 20 feet tall. The Jeep sign is 18 feet tall. So they're both very tall signs. And then I don't know what you would call it, but it's sort of more of a ground. So the Chrysler Dodge Ram, is that called the monument sign, or is the
That's-
other one?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so technically this looks like a monument sign, but it has a pole structure and then this
Right.
is just aluminum wrap
Right,
around it.
got it. So the monument sign is 10
10
12
feet.
10 feet. So they're all very, very large signs. And they're fall within our code. I am pretty concerned about the objectives not being met for effective visual communication right when we get into town, and also for public safety with the visual clutter and improving effective visual communication for drivers. You know, we've got 9 wall signs on a very large building, which is, I think, pretty adequate signage for the brands. And I think, it behooves a business to advertise absolutely as much as possible. And I think it behooves us as a city to make it fair for everybody by limiting it. I don't think that we can do this with what we have now for our signage code, but I would love for this property to just have one signage with all of those 5 brands on the monument. I think that would be the most visually safe for drivers, and to have that at the driveway as a wayfinding, and to signal that that's where you go for all brands. That is not what's before us, but that is what I wish was before us. So because we can't vote on something that isn't before us, I think that we need to ask Kendall to go back to the drawing board. I unfortunately don't think it's in the city's best interest to allow that the second sign on the Sterling, because essentially that will look like 3 signs right on the Sterling, and that monument sign and the Jeep sign will be really, really close together. And I think that their signage on their building is adequate, and we're giving them potentially we can give them a variance for that. And so to ask them to maybe go back to the drawing board, potentially put all of their brands on one monument sign right by their driveway, which would make me very happy. But if not, at least I don't think we can move forward with that having a second sign, freestanding sign, in addition to everything else that they already have for the Sterling.
Commissioner Burton. So I'm getting the sense we're all in agreement with at least the approving a wall sign, that part of the amendment. So to change the language in the resolution, I move to amend resolution PZ 2023-014 and delete number 10, granting of the freestanding sign variances in harmony with the general provisions of the sign code, the zoning code, and the comprehensive plan. Number 14, the proposed freestanding signs are in harmony with surrounding buildings and properties. And then in section 2, deleting that portion, the applicant has demonstrated that the proposed freestanding signs meet the standards required for a sign variance, and therefore the commission approves the request to erect 3 freestanding signs at a distance less than 300 feet, 2 of which are on a frontage less than 500 feet in length, located at 443965 Sterling Highway, and as shown on the site plan drawings and application material submitted on July 24th, 2023. So if we delete those 3, does that essentially give us just the wall signs? Do I understand that correctly?
This is Charlene. I'll second. So for discussion.
Sorry, Dennis, I didn't catch what you said. Thank you, Charlene.
There might be one more number.
Yes. Yeah, and can I just add that to the amendment? The whereas number 6, 1 freestanding sign is proposed for the location of East Redoubt Avenue, and 2 freestanding signs are proposed for the Sterling Highway frontage. No sign is taller than 20 feet in height at the highest point, and no sign is of a distance less than 20 feet from the curb line of East Redoubt Avenue or the Sterling Highway.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Murray, I would second the amendment.
Thank you.
All right. Did you want to vote on the?
Vote on the amendment.
So this is voting to amend the resolution. And again, it's to amend the resolution by deleting from the seventh whereas, number 6, number 10, and number 14, as well as section 2. Here's the vote. Murray,
Yes.
Topfest,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Barbaza,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
and Chair Vadla.
Yes.
The vote to amend resolution passes. Did you want to vote on the, does anyone?
Yeah, if there, are there any additional comments on the main resolution before us as amended?
Madam
Yep.
Chair, on number 8, and I think that's also referring to the freestanding signs.
Yeah, let's take it. Is the freestanding signs? Yep. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Although it does refer to it, it doesn't, it can refer to it and it's not necessarily a part of granting the resolution. It states some of the reasoning. But we can also go back, amend it again, and then revote. So we can, if you want to delete 6, 8, 10, and 14, and then section 2, we can revote. Is that what you guys want to do?
I would second that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So is there any other comments?
The distance requirements for of the freestanding signs to each other. Proposed signs in all other ways comply with requirements. Variance requested to the allowable area for wall signs. So would that be to just strike and distance requirements of freestanding signs to each other from number 15 and keep the rest? Or just strike it completely?
I think it would just be that portion, like you said first.
All right.
No, don't
No, thank you for
apologize.
catching these. The devil's in the details.
Madam Chair, wouldn't it be better, since we've already passed the First Amendment, just to have a second amendment to address the issues that Sonia brought up?
Yeah, let's do a second amendment with number 8 and number 15 changes. Sorry, what did
Madam Chair, also in section or number 4.
You can do.
Yep, let's just delete all of the language concerning freestanding signs, since there will be no variance. Likely this will only deal with the wall sign request.
And then also in the first whereas, the end, it's not a statement, in the middle of the statement, the distance limitations between freestanding signs.
John has his hand raised. I think he'll kind of be able to shed in a little bit of insight. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Yeah, and the reason that these other ones aren't being removed or suggested for removal are that these are general findings. So what this resolution does is it provides a record that the applicant has applied for 2 variances. And we believe it's important to still show on the record that two were applied for, but that only 1 is approved. And items number 4, 6, and I forgot the last one that was mentioned. Was it 15? Let me look here. Yes, and 15 are not necessary to strike from the resolution. For example, 15 says, aside from the variance requested to the allowable area and wall signs and distance requirements, the proposed signs in all other ways comply with requirements of the sign code. And that's completely true. It identifies where they are, where the applicant's application falls short of the code, and identifies where it meets the code. So that's not an issue. And 4 simply states, I think, the fact that there's 3 signs proposed. And so again, this is really a record of what's being proposed, but the decision point and what you're being approved will be amended through your actions by eliminating 61014 in section 2.
Okay, thank you, John. That clarification helps. And so with that, it's my understanding that no additional amendments are needed, so that we can just continue to have this resolution show that what the applicant applied for. John, can you confirm that our First Amendment is what was adequate, and that no additional amendments are needed?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, you are correct. And if your intent is to only allow the wall signs and not the freestanding signs as applied for, then your amendment addresses that appropriately. And at this point, I don't see any other changes necessary to the resolution to meet that need, or to get to that request, or that if that's your goal, then you're there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional commission comments or questions for staff? I did want to state that the sign that's proposed for the East Street out frontage is really, really close to the Sterling. And I don't know if there's any recommendations that we can make to the applicant to move their sign farther away from the Sterling. But I mean, I know that that's the audience that they want. So it just crowds that frontage a lot.
Commissioner Burton, I do like your idea about putting essentially all the brands on one side, one sign. And, if that's a recommendation we could make, I think that's great.
So most of the time, your commission sees conditional use permits or plat reviews. Those are the bulk majority of your actions, and you are able to place conditions on resolutions or make recommendations. In this case, you can, let the applicant know, but there's nothing like that. There's no conditions on the resolution, and there's no other changes. The request for the variance is a simple yes or no then. But that is something to think about for future code amendments about the different frontages and that distance between signage, kind of what Dennis said originally, and then further kind of expanded upon by you guys.
This is Charlene. I have a quick question. Are the wall signs going to be lit up, 24/7, or do they turn them off? I'm just curious.
That might be a question for the applicant. Jared, I don't know if you're able to answer that.
I am. They're placed on a lighting control circuit, and Kendall has the ability to turn them off for a selected and scheduled period of time each night. I'm not aware of anything in the planning and zoning code dictating that behavior, but I can check in with them and see what their plan is.
We don't have any. Oh, John has his hand raised.
Thanks. I agree that there's nothing in the code that would prohibit them from keeping their signs lit 24 hours a day. And I also wanted to reflect back on the previous comment. Now, if I can remember what it was. It was Mr. Burton's recommendation. So I just wanted to say that just by making your statements, both Mr. Burton and Ms. Vadla, that your statements are on the record, become part of the minutes. The applicant is on the line, and we'll take those recommendations as he sees fit back to his employer. But we don't have a formal process for recommendations in that, a resolution's not necessary, a motion's not necessary. Simply stating your recommendations, either as individuals or as a commission, that's something, like I say, there's no formal mechanism, but certainly let your voices be heard. It'll be become part of the record and will be communicated to the applicant.
Yeah, that's a good comment about the illumination. It will probably be pretty bright and, so it is something to consider. We have the wall sign limitations for a reason. It might be in our best interest to just ask everyone to follow the code. They're only asking for, I think, an additional 44 square feet, which doesn't seem like a lot. We have granted other variances for more, but it just is good for us to think about if we're always, granting variances. Does that mean that, it's in the business's best interest to have it as big as possible? So in the city's interest, I think it's better to have less is sometimes more when it comes to signage, just because every single lot there has a lot. And so it becomes overload for the driver who's trying to look at everything on all the signs on the buildings and all the freestanding signs and all the wacky inflatable flailing arm tube men and all the flags and all the sandwich board signs. It's a lot. And that's when we get into the public safety sphere. And I think it's important to consider that it's not just the one variance that we're granting, it's this whole big streetscape that we're trying to keep safe and like sort of clutter-free, or as clutter-free as we can make it. Are there any other commissioner questions or comments before voting on the resolution as amended?
Okay, and just to definitely clarify, we had a motion to amend a second time, and that was removed from the floor. So this is now a motion, or now your vote is on the resolution as amended. Okay, so Topfest,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Barbaza,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
and Chair Badla.
Yes.
So the motion as amended passed.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks to staff and everybody for the good discussion, and thank you for being here, Jared, to answer questions. And all right, moving on. There are no you can come back if there's any public comments without prior notice. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to make a comment? Doesn't look like it, so we'll move on. There's no informational items, reports. Councilmember Wackler, thanks for joining us again. Do you have anything to share with us from council?
Yeah, so the last meeting we had on July 26th, we just had a lot of really just housekeeping stuff, but we appropriated funds for updating the Soldotna Police Force's body cams. We were one of the first ones to kind of implement that. Early adopters being what they are, they've reached kind of their life cycle, just technology wise, so they have to be replaced. We did appropriate funds for the design and construction of the wastewater treatment plant outflow because it has collapsed. And amended code to approve some strategies for employee retention. And then just a little note that the pre-bid conference is August 8th for the Fieldhouse project. It's strongly suggested that anyone who's going to bid attend that conference. It's not required. And then to let you guys know that those bids should be coming in by about Christmas. So we'll have a better idea about what that project's going to look like moving forward. If it can,
Yeah.
what it's going to look like. And then there may be stuff coming back to you guys as far as getting things. We may need to do gravel parking lot for the beginning. There's a lot of like moving parts with that, to kind of just figuring out how we can potentially make it all happen, and then have just kind of a more long-term plan on completing it how we had envisioned it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Economic Development and Planning Director, John Zarneski, do you have anything to share with us?
Thank you. No, nothing to share tonight. I'll pass the torch to Jen and let her share all the news. Thanks.
Thank you. Gosh, I did not prepare for this. So sorry. Our Riverfront redevelopment consultants are going to be back in town on the 3rd week of August. So we're looking forward to seeing more of their plans for the improvement area and being able to share more information with you. Our arts and culture plan, we did have a joint work session with you guys and with council. If there are any edits or changes you want, please let me know or let Laura Reiner know, and we can work with you. So again, if you have a moment to review that arts and culture master plan, please do, and let one of us know about any amendments or changes to it. It'll get before council, and then it'll be ratified at some point in time, maybe the last, or it might be introduced the last or the second to last week of August, or it might be into September. And I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you guys for the good meeting.
All right, Commissioner comments. Maybe we'll start at Commissioner Barbaza. Would you mind kicking us off, and then we can kind of go down the line?
Great meeting, guys. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for the long report, Jen. You did very good. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you for putting this all together.
Where is the arts and culture master plan located in the city's stuff?
It is just draft format, so it's not on our website. I did email it out to you, but I will re-email it. I'll email it to everyone after this meeting. So look for it in your inbox. It'll be a PDF.
Thank you.
I just wanted the Riverfront redevelopment plan and the arts and culture master plan, I think all highlighted the need for and the shortage of employees and everything, highlighted the need again for us to consider how to provide a diversity of housing stock and affordable housing to folks who are lower income and to folks who are seasonal workers and to folks who are moving to town. We definitely have not enough affordable housing in city limits, and I know that there's the folks on the corner, in the what is now RV and RV park have gotten their notice that they need to vacate, but there's really no place to go. And so I think, it's not necessarily the city's responsibility to answer that question directly, but it is really important for us to consider that like we are going to be displacing low income or folks with mobility issues, and those are our residents. And so I think it's worth and timely to consider how we go about as a planning commission, thinking about affordable housing, and especially for folks who don't have a car and who need to walk to the grocery store and stuff like that. So I think that the only other place in town is the the trailer park right on Birch Street. And so we've got limited square footage in the city. And that does make things difficult to figure out, but that, I guess that's a request to staff to think about that this coming fall and winter, if we can find the time to think about what our responsibility is as the planning commission to plan for how we address the issue of small and affordable housing for our residents.
I just want to make something very clear that we did not displace any residents. That's not, the city did not displace any residents.
No.
So we have not entered into any agreements for that area. That area had a lot of code violations, and we're seeing a lot of property with its tenants, whether it was domestic violence, substance abuse, there's a lot of issues. So we've worked with the property owner, and we're hoping to, we didn't request for anyone to be evicted. It was purely just trying to figure out how do we make sure that everyone who is living in the city is living in a safe area. And then the property owner itself decided to move away its structure from those long-term tenants to maybe more seasonal tenants. So the city did not displace anyone. I just want to make sure that that was very clear.
No, I think just the issue being that if you are don't have a lot of money, it's really hard to find a place to live in town. So I think that's an issue that it's worth considering how we plan for that and how we make spaces. What is our role as a planning and zoning commission? I do think we have one. I don't know what it is or what the answer is, but those are our residents, and I think they deserve our consideration. But yeah, thanks for the conversation tonight and talking about the details. And with that, I'll just say that our next regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on September 6th at 5:30 p.m. in the City Council chambers here. And thanks, everybody, and good night.